Good morning, y'all. Our APAC knockouts are going down. Continue to go down. 4 matches, 4 teams remaining in each group. 2 teams go home. We got 2 idiots starting off our cast. What's up, everybody?
Yeah, I hope you guys have all got your passports and your visas because you are now entering the city limits of Banger City. We've got ourselves all of our winners games today as well as our losers semis. Every game counts here and all of the top dogs are going to be showing their faces and their strats. Some of these teams we have very limited data on as we've only seen them once in the new meta and they've all shown some very different looks. Of course, Dallas Fuel and the Hangzhou Spark, some of them are clinging to the old, some of them are really happy with the new, but between these two teams, they look like absolute monsters in APAC, and despite what may have been a lackluster performance from APAC at Mid-Season Madness, it looks like maybe going into Grand Finals, APAC could be a lot stronger.
We don't talk about that.
Right? We did not talk about Mid-Season Madness.
Spring didn't happen. I forgot about it. All that matters is summer, because the competition is just heating up when it comes to APAC. We got 4 teams remaining from each group, and it's all about your combined average placings between spring and summer. You know, consistency is important in order to get to play-ins, to playoffs, to show West who's boss or who's mid after all. And we have a really good first match for Hangzhou and Dallas first.
Yeah, Hangzhou they're still in the past. They still like their Winston, and they are trying their best to make it work. Admittedly, they did make it work pretty exceptionally against Dreamers in their previous matchup, but Dreamers and Dallas Fuel are entirely different beasts in this meta. Dallas Fuel are leaning very heavily into the Junker Queen, which tends to have a pretty favorable matchup against the Winston if you look at it in isolation, but the Winston teams often can try and out-coordinate something like a Junker Queen.
It feels kind of like a rock, paper, scissors meta right now, and everyone is starting to slowly develop their own identities. This is a brand new meta, and when the stakes are pretty high, especially in APAC and really in the West as well, there's teams that are just hardcore Rissa, teams Junker Queen, somehow still teams running Winston, as you pointed out, teams even trying Reinhardt. Only London is really successful with that. Even Dreamer yesterday, we'll be seeing Dreamers yet again. Didn't have fun on the Reinhardt when we had a 1v5 rampage take care of that real quick.
Yeah, Arpen did 1v5 them on what felt like 2 separate occasions. The Reinhardt was really lagging behind, and we saw Dreamer brought back in later in the series. 4 Dreamers was like, okay, I'm done with that hero. I'm playing Orisa now. Speaking of which, Orisa is the hero that we haven't mentioned yet when it comes to tanks. We talked about rock, paper, scissors. 1 corner's Winston, 1 corner's Junker Queen, and the final corner, which seems like the most strongly reinforced corner, is the rock of the rock, paper, scissors is definitely Orisa. She is an immovable boulder right now that people are trying to Sisyphonally push up the mountain. Second that Orisa plants her hooves on any objective, it's incredibly difficult to get past her, necessitating some tricksy moves or some extra teleports in order to try and get onto backlines that are supporting Orisa and then leave her till last. And sometimes it can be really difficult to try and deal with a team that has an Orisa who's adept at getting in the way of those strategies.
I don't know if I'm cooking. It's 1 a.m., so I'm just starting, y'all. But thinking about the rock, paper, scissors, if I had to think of who is the paper to the Orisa rock, I would say Winston, because it quite literally is just covering her up with a bubble. Even though in a vacuum, I don't think Winston wants to tango with the Orisa, but, you know, blocking off heals is important. Just ignoring the Orisa is usually my go-to strategy. And then definitely the scissors being Junker Queen. She does have a knife. So I would say Orisa messes up Junker Queen usually pretty consistently, being able to create that space between them. Here's how the bracket is shaping up, by the way. 4 teams left in each group.
4 teams, yes, remaining. We did have to send 2 home from each group yesterday. That would be Rhodes and Panthera exiting from Group A. Their year is unfortunately over. And Guangzhou Charge and Shanghai Dragons both being dropped from Group B, but their year is not over, as I believe they still have our APAC play-ins to try and go through. Admittedly, though, with how shaky these teams are looking at the moment, it might be difficult to go up against some of the other teams that could be shanghaied over into that zone. Shanghai Dragons actually lost twice to SBG in this bracket, which is certainly an event that occurred.
Consistent. It is consistent.
It's consistency for Shanghai Dragons. Unfortunately, it's consistently poor. Here's a quick look at Banger City. City limits we have now bypassed.
Up, down, upper final. lower bracket, upper final again, lower bracket, you know. And we're going to see a lot of ups and downs, but when it comes to SPG, I guess it's only up. Because the Contenders haters out there would be like, oh, well, Contenders teams can't beat Owl, wah, wah, wah. But, you know, SPG have now done it multiple times, so, yeah.
As fanboy triggering as it sounds, SPG are not Owl level, some might say, but Shanghai Dragons found out the hard way that they certainly do have some tricks up their sleeve. Milgaru definitely is a big superstar on that team. Brings out the ball a little bit more than many teams do. But also they can fall back on the Orisa when things start to get a little bit tough. Here's a quick look at our first team here, the Hangzhou Spark. You know him, you love him. It's the Chinese super team, and none of these players really needs any introduction, so we should start highlighting that Guxue has actually been expanding his hero pool comprehensively. Not just a Winston player now. He plays plenty of Orisa, plenty of Junker Queen if need be, but for Hangzhou Spark, they tend to go for the Winston first, and then, after that, if there's trouble, try and adapt.
Well, Spark were the connoisseurs of that double flanker. Leave just put in his little tracer box that I felt like he never got time to shine, and he's blossomed into this incredible Genji Echo superstar who got player of the match in the, well, only match that Spark have played so far. You know, Fuel and Spark haven't dropped a single game. They both got 3-0s. Lee's going to be my player to watch. As just the impact that Genji and Echo has on Control and just other maps, and how well he's going to be able to synergize with Guxue if he is going to stick to the dive. That Genji Winston synergy is very important. Or if Guxue does want to go to Orisa to counter that Junker Queen, what is Leave going to opt for?
Well, who knows? Against the Dallas Fuel, things are going to get complicated. There's only really one comp they go for, but Dallas Fuel, it's time to get hyped up and meet the team.
Fueled up and ready to go, Hanbin has leveled up so much as now the solo tank for this roster, and there's not a lot of off tanks out there that did incredibly well in that Winston heavy meta, and Hanbin has the mechanics to especially shine in either a Junker Queen, Orisa meta, whatever it is. This was the #1 team coming out of the qualifiers with their only loss being to the Hangzhou Spark.
Yeah, and that was in what was a very Winston-heavy meta until we kind of got our mid-second half of the season patch, which has allowed Hanbin to flex over onto this Junker Queen, which some would argue is his best hero. During last season, in Stage 3, we had a meta we called Jotes, which was all about the Junker Queen and just being able to rush together in tandem with Genji, Lucio, and Brigitte. And in the West, Dallas Fuel were the winners of that. Fearless was, of course, benched the entire time so that Hanbin could come in and play the Junker Queen, and Dallas Fuel are more than happy to try and go back towards the essence of that meta with some newly buffed DPS in Bastion and Symmetra, who have since come to the fore with the burst mobility of a teleporter that the Symmetra adds and the unfathomable damage that Bastion brings to the table.
Speaking of that Bastion, we may see just more of that. Our very first map is going to be Lijiang Tower, where really just call it Orisa Tower. That's what everyone is running. But just Orisa is just the best tank in the game right now. Takes space, holds space incredibly well, has the most armor in the game, which in Overwatch 2 is just way more powerful. Has, space creation with the Javelin throw, the Javelin spin for damage mitigation, Fortify to remove any kind of displacement abilities. So she can't be displaced. I'm wondering how much of that we're going to see from Guxue, because Winston is especially weak on Lijiang, at least on Control Center.
Yeah, you can have trouble, especially moving into some of those more enclosed spaces where the Symmetra turrets can often be set up in very annoying locations. Edison's certainly the thinking man's hit scan. Played a lot of Reaper previously, was excellent on the Sojourn, and when it comes to modulating your cooldown use effectively, Edison's got to be up there as one of the top hit scans, but when it comes to raw hit scan aim, he's matched by Shy here. And Shy is, some would argue, almost without parallel. Lit probably the closest parallel that we have in terms of premier hit scans right now. Shy is a monster to behold, and if he can find an off angle on that soldier, he's going to tear Dallas to shreds.
And Shy is picking up that tracer role as well, when last time in that double flanker meta, Leave was that tracer, so kind of feels like Soldier is like the old man tracer, just like a little bit slower, less blinky, more runny. And I think Shy can just take really great off angles on Lijiang Tower, but how much do you really want to do that? A lot of teams will run either Queen and a Lucio, or at the very least a Lucio, and we've seen just yesterday, Control doesn't allow you to have that much free or safe space. It's a very enclosed map. So we've seen even Sojourn players just get absolutely bulldozed by trying to take it off angle. So how much is Shy gonna want to be by himself? Does he want to have Langsa with him? Does he want to just play safe, play with the team? There's just different styles of Soldier, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Shy uses.
Yeah, looking for those off-angle duos is going to be one of our main hallmarks of analysis here. It came to prominence pretty effectively with San Francisco Shock last year, where we'd often see Finn and Proper playing as a duo with the Zenyatta and Tracer. Now we're seeing a lot more Soldier Iliari from some teams, or Soldier and Lucio, like you said. Sometimes Brigitte can try and take that off-angle just to make sure that they can't be dove together with a more vulnerable support. Hangzhou Spark, for the moment, They do tease some things, but Dallas Fuel is something that I'm going to be a lot more sure of, that Spark is going to be remaining on this Symmetra. Unbin, of course, has options here when it comes to playing either the Orisa or the Junker Queen. Is going to be opting for the Junker Queen. So Dallas Fuel playing exactly what we expect for now. Hangzhou Spark coming out with something a little bit different. The Pocketed Echo is going to be real difficult for Dallas to take down.
This Doomfist of Gushue has to be careful of the knives from Hanbin. That can be what pulls him in when Gushue's trying to escape, but hey, maybe a great counter if you can dodge that, bully the Junker Queen around, or maybe just ignore. But usually around a Junker Queen, you want to stay sort of close so you can be within shout range. Noting Shy that is on that off angle around White Room, but does have leave, so has, you know, the Pocket of Mercy, the mini pack available. So Hangzhou Spark assessing, seeing what play that Gushue can open up with.
Question is right now, Hangzhou Spark, how do they keep Monk from being ran on by the speed boost of Bliss? He's going to be the most vulnerable member. We do have ourselves a pause, so let's talk about Hangzhou Spark's comp and what it means to accomplish here, which is the widespread that we've seen. We saw Shy on one angle, obviously up in the air we have Leave and Lengsa as a pocket, and Gushue is able to easily escape any real rushes coming towards him using the seismic slam, and that means that Monk is the least mobile and therefore the most vulnerable of the members, and is trying to play a lot further back into his own territory in order to try and remain safe. And that means that potentially Dallas Fuel are going to have trouble reaching any of the targets they want to aggress upon, but conversely, because it's Control, maybe they don't need to. They can simply sit upon the point and wait for Hangzhou Spark to come and fight them.
I would summarize that as Hangzhou Spark are playing the MC Hammer comp. You can't touch this. I'm running away all the time. Monk, like you said, is the biggest target, though. Little Granny, better watch your back. Hope that Kane is strong. Because Hanbin and friends want to engage on the target. That's the whole point of the Symmetra. Brings you to a location. There's only one taxi available, and everyone has to get on it. I'm glad everyone has their snacks available, because I'm expecting a banger of a match. The last time these two teams faced, it went to Game 5. Different meta, but the same story. Both these teams have been battling for first place, second place, third place, with, you know, Soul Infernal is hanging around too. But what an interesting look from Spark to obviously cook up something special just for the Fuel.
World's best Queen Hanbin said one of those signs. Certainly enjoying Hanbin being able to return to the forefront of off-tank play. And earlier, Lemon, when we were talking about our rock, paper, scissors, you talked about Orisa's displacement abilities of both the javelin throw and the spin. And one of the things that I'm looking at here is potentially Gushue's ability to displace a rush onto Monk, because she is incredibly vulnerable, not only to the speeders, but to the teleport as well. And if players do group up to go through a teleport, there is a world where you can get huge value out of a punch, grabbing multiple members, and therefore potentially giving Monk some room to escape. And if you do teleport onto an Ana, there's a big anti that can come through, and very little means of mitigating it from Dallas Fuel.
Speaking of Dallas Fuel, all smiles. This, I think, has to be one of the funnest teams to play for. Not speaking from experience, just judging the vibes. Everyone's always laughing, and if you've watched any of Sparkle's content, He's the most like hilarious player. He's one of my favorite players in the league just for his personality alone, and then he's also like the most goated player. So Dallas Fuel makes you wonder how they would do in the West. Obviously they moved to APAC and they had this bump in the road trying to adjust to that. But what's important is that the players are happy, they're close to home, moisturized, thriving, but they're so talented. I just wonder how they would do in the West.
Yeah, over in the West, obviously, there's a lot of stiff competition. The big three, of course, being Atlanta Reign, Florida Mayhem, and Houston Outlaws, with Boston also being a serious contender that's always going to be a real threat. I do think that in the first half of the year, Dallas Fuel would have been destroyed no matter where they were. It was a very poor beginning to the year for Dallas Fuel. MCD and Bliss were taking a while to be integrated. Edison and Sparkle weren't quite finding their groove when it came to the Sombra Tracer either. But in the second half of the year, Dallas Fuel are an entirely different beast, where perhaps they could be trading games for some of those big three and Dark Horse 4 over in the West. Still, it's worth noting, like you said, this is a team that's perpetually happy, and I think that comes down to a lot of the family dynamic that this team has. Of course, Hunbin, Sparkle, Edison, and MCD are all exclusive scoutings of Rush during his time with Element Mystic, which was one of the prestige teams we had over in Contenders Korea. Bliss is a lot newer of a pickup, a much more younger and not necessarily scouted by Rush initially talent. I think he came from O2 Blast, but Rush has a unbelievable penchant for picking the best talent. Of course, Fearless was also a scout of Rush's. Happy as well on his old name during the Element Mystic era. Oh, I love that little bunny for it is. That's very cute. And certainly that family dynamic creates a lot of sort of like inner tranquility for these Dallas Fuel teams.
Burn blue today, burn study tomorrow is what the sign said. But speaking about matching up against the West, if my memory serves right, Hangzhou Spark have matched up better against the West, and also in playoffs in general. They get kind of this Omega buff where they don't usually get number 1 seed, but they end up being the best team from APAC. There's something about the Shy leave that they go Super Saiyan when the stakes are super high. We're currently experiencing a tech issue over on the Hangzhou Spark side, hence the Overtalk podcast happening. And you talked about, amazing rosters being picked up. Hangzhou Spark have scouted the best Chinese team in the league, and I hope they get to keep them because they're just so good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Hangzhou Spark is just Team China. For those of you who may be worrying that the Overwatch esports content ends in October with our Toronto Grand Finals, fear not, because the Overwatch World Cup is still alive and kicking.
Oh, yeah.
We've got America, Canada, the UK, China are all lining up to try and show their best stuff. I believe that there are also a bunch of other notable teams that are really looking to put their players on the map. The World Cup has always been a really cool community event, not just because of the pride that it elucidates in so many fans in smaller regions, but also because it's been amazing for scouting. One of the players that comes to mind here is, of course, Flower, who ended up on NYXL after an excellent run with the Korean team. We also had Kodak from Team Germany in 2019, who ended up on the Atlanta Reign afterwards, being an excellent pickup. And here we go, back to the game. Overtalk is done.
I can't even remember what I had for breakfast, and you just recited like World Cup history from like 5 years back, so I feel dumb as hell, but
shout out to my homie Kodak.
Dallas Fuel, I thought that was the camera, to be honest. Dallas Fuel, though, that was the point. But Spark are threatening it, but without Shy, this is so tough. Again, Shy has to be careful how close he plays, how close or how far he plays with this team. So far, he's been within reach of Monk and Lengsta, but how quickly Fuel can engage with 2 options of speed, and of course Sparkle can teleport them. Yeah, they gotta be careful.
Teleporter right there. Nano given over onto Leave as well. Edison's right in the crosshairs.
Everyone is dead. Leave dropped down to like 20 HP. Does go for the dupe. 1v1. Can Hanbin hang on? Leave is nerf 2 doesn't have like as much HP as the real thing. 55% almost there for the Fuel, and the Rampage built up from Leave. Great support, and Fuel are down too, especially their tank, so that's gone.
I think Leaf hit a no-look knife onto Sparkle in the middle of that deflect as well. This guy truly can play anything, and Echo is the optimal hero for the man who can play anything, because you can simply be anything. All you've got to do is believe and potentially have it on the enemy team. One of the ultimates we're going to be looking at here is for Tactical Visor. Dallas Fuel, of course, do have the option to disengage both via Speed Boost and via Teleporter, but now with Sparkle moving forward, one of those options is gone.
Oh, good jump out from Gushue when the photon barrier came up behind him, which could have blocked his heals. You do not want to, at least you want to be decisive on how you engage around a photon barrier, all in or all out. It is the visor that comes out as soon as that photon barrier drops. Sound barrier in response by the Fuel, the Rampage, or actually an anti from Monk is what slows down the healing onto Fuel, and Edison doesn't profit, and he falls first. A lot of damage gone for the Fuel, and Spark could be cleaning up, but Blizz just double booped as Spark were maybe trying to grab Mega on the side of Dojo. So Fuel have somehow made this winnable. Leave continues to go for the 1v1, but the Mega Pack grab is big, buys him a few more shots. Even with the pocket of Lengsta, it's simply not enough for the Spark to hang on. Meanwhile, Fuel did get the flip. They're reaching 90%, and the artillery is going to bombard this bridge. Can Spark head to the point in time?
A desperate attempt to assassinate Monk, who will get out scot-free for now, and Gushue's return to make sure that overtime is going to be proc for Rampage in the back pocket, though. We saw what this can do in the hands of Arpa. Remember, it gives over a huge amount of self-healing as well as for Valkyrie's going to be popped. Gushue's off! What?
Hanbin. Anyway, Hanbin is going to kill everybody, and the end. Dallas, you will won round one.
L plus ratio plus you fell off.
Actually, you fell off. What the heck happened? I actually had the caster, like, EXE failed again.
just sometimes something happens that is beyond explanation or credulity, and it simply sends your brain into a hard reboot. This is going to be an even more difficult... Ah, here we go.
That's a double boot.
Well, Bliss is popping off. I will admit that. Maybe Gushue missed a punch and simply sailed off the edge. That seems to be the most likely course of action here. Is this it? No,
wow,
that's an actual boot.
3.
Crazy.
Well, you hyped up Blizz and you were not capping, so...
Yeah, like...
Good crystal ball.
Bliss has been excellent on the Brigitte this year as well. Certainly showing off that there's plenty of heroes in his pool that he can excel on. We haven't seen much of a way of double flex support from Dallas Fuel yet. This might be an even more difficult battle for Hangzhou Spark to take, as Dallas Fuel, they can bunker up very effectively in the marketplace if they so desire.
Yeah, a lot of the Fuel's attention has actually been on the Leave and Shy, as Monk is hiding, looking for a sneaky anti to help Gushue engage, and now it's focused on healing him because he just did not want that smoke. Fuel has so much damage that can also ramp up and burst. Edison, if he activates the shifts, Sparkle, if he can generate more charge. Now Fuel are, well, done charging into Spark, and we'll cap the point first.
Yeah, and with Fuel's reposition, that means that Monk now has to get away from that high ground and play in a much more vulnerable position. Leave is taken up by Hanbin of all people? Where you flying, bro? That's for yanks.
The wings ran out of juice. Gotta charge that thing up.
I've run out of wings.
Didn't have that unbranded energy drink, I gotta say.
True, our legally distinct energy drink was not present. Shy's over on the Tracer. This is going to be interesting. The Tracer will struggle to get initial damage against the Bastion because of the armor, and of course will struggle against the Symmetra turrets as well, but an assassination onto MCD here is the most likely win condition that Shy can try and make happen alongside Leave by setting someone up for that focusing beam to come into full damage.
Oh, Edison taking a lot of burst, and what an anti! 3 of them hits! Monk sets up the fight! Can Spark finish it off? Edison is cut down. Immortality only buys Fuel so much time. They try to distance themselves away from the Spark, and the Duke only helps so much. Fuel disengaged and took a few bodies along with them, and the 2-man sound here from Bliss. Of course, when you frag as much as Bliss does, you always think it's winnable, but Spark are flipping the point. You'll want to dump some bodies to maybe extend that 66% that they have into a little bit more. And Fuel are trying to maybe even TP in, and Edison says, "Where's the fight? I'm here with pizza," gets pulsed out, and Fuel are dead.
Oh, Bliss still gets one. 69% is all that Dallas Fuel will walk away with. It's been a nice beginning, of course, but there's still so much left to do. Almost a Rampage available now for Hanbin. It looks like Leave is just public enemy #1. Lengsa can't keep up with the healing. Why heal when you can
Fuel.
rest?
Okay, this is nice. Usually you don't get away with that, but Gushui is nanoed. Monk at 1 HP just had to go for something, and oh, no one wants to be next to the edge when Gushui is here. Spark will try to TP out. Not allowed, the door is shut, but also Hanbin takes care of that, protects his backline well. There's only 1 tank remaining in the 5 versus 3. Fuel back in the driver's seat.
One of the cool things that Hangzhou Spark are doing here to try and minimize risk is to play around the outside and have Shy contest, because Hanbin doesn't want to rampage off the edge. And it very much limits his options in terms of going out, like you said before, risk getting hit away by Gushui, who can easily grab those environmental kills. For now, though, Gushui is going to have trouble entering here with Edison posted up at the back, ready to just let loose with the cannon at a moment's notice.
Having a TP set up, if Edison gets pushed, Spark can maybe try to sneak up on him too. The Ant Matrix from MCD, that's a weird angle, and Soundbearer tries to anchor them a bit better in MCD. To sushi up, Fuel don't have a lot of healing. Spark have a dupe, another tank, and Sleeve with another queen, and another rampage. Hanbin tried to make his impression of Leave, but it's Spark taking over. You gotta deal with Hanbin, though. He always takes a few more corpses with him along the way, and as the dust settles, Spark is actually keeping the point.
Yeah, aside from falling off the map, Gushui's actually doing very well with this Doomfist. I love that combo there from Leave as well to knife in MCD into a vulnerable position and have Gushui punch him off the edge. They couldn't kill him because of the Immortality Field, but Gravity respects no devices, lamps, or other gadgets. Shy, ready to go with a pulse bomb here. Ideally, it would be onto someone like Bliss or MCD, but of course the Immortality Field's going to be available first, so maybe you want to force that out in advance.
Oh, good shout from Hanbin to save Sparkle, and he's still in trouble, and I don't think Mega Pack's available. How is Sparkle still alive? Great support out of MCD and Bliss. As Dallas Fuel tried to stabilize, so did Spark, who head back towards the point, protected from being back-capped, and heals Gushui up to full Shy! Shot in the face there by Edison. Small advantage that the Fuel can work with, but Gushui is nanoed, misses the punch onto Edison. Will he ever get stopped? And Bliss continues to frag as the Lucio. Spark have been pushed outside of the objective. Someone has to touch! And somehow Gushui makes it there in time, and he punches Hanbin off! That's the biggest threat on the Fuel! Spark are holding on by the skin of their teeth, and it's Bliss that has to keep this still capped for the Fuel, but nobody is left. And Spark have regained control.
Gushui is crazy min-maxing right now. The most final blows on his team, by the way, at 9. The next highest is Leave with 7. Hanbin's had to swap with his Doomfist himself just a touch, and Bliss is already dead.
Oh, Hanbin got screwed there. He got antied, and the whole squad came from Deadeye, from Edison, off into the distance. Just to salute a pretty good showdown that happened in the second round. 100 to 99 when I thought Fuel had that at the end.
And Dallas Fuel are being forced to attack now. They swapped over Sparkle and Edison onto Genji and for Cassidy, hoping that maybe the magnetic grenade would be enough to slow down Gushui's roll. Right now, Gushui is excelling. And any fears I had of Hangzhou Spark potentially being stuck in a Winston meta seem to be gone. However, now we're going to be dealing with a map that's a lot more enclosed, maybe a lot less friendly to that Echo, and there's going to be very few means of trying to find those environmental kills, so this is still anybody's game.
Yeah, there's been some whispers of Doomfist in scrims, especially on Control and Flashpoint, where the walls are enclosed, and usually Orisa can counter this quite well, but when Hanbin doesn't opt for that, Gushui has a chance. And what a punch to contest, too. Server control immediately for Dallas Fuel, and this is a power position on this map because it has access to the enemy backline, and Hanbin proving that. Shy in trouble in ship form, so vulnerable. Shy cut down by the Fuel, who do get stunned up by Gushui trying to re-engage in, but with Spark playing this 3v5, Fuel do look weak, and it did look winnable for the Spark, but it's Jover. Fuel get the point first.
Just a huge amount of healing that came out from MCD there. You can see that he's already getting up almost to the amplification matrix, and in these enclosed maps, the amplification matrix, when combined with the Bastion damage, can be insurmountable. Even with something as powerful as Doomfist's frontal block, you take a huge amount of damage going through that. Monk swapping over onto the Illari is certainly a new look for the Hangzhou Spark, and I don't know if the pylon really brings too much to the table for a comp this mobile, but it certainly will keep Shy alive.
Yeah, trying to maybe add some more poke to help The engage from Gushui. Speaking of which, Gushui is in deep. Fuel are surrounded, but they choose a point of engage, and it's Sparkle that lasers down the supports around Gushui when he went into the back. And Fuel reacts well, but Spark still had a chokehold on this team, and it's Leave back on the Tracer that made a huge impact in that fight, and Fuel still believe as they pop the Soundbear in that 3v3. And Fuel, they have just held on to this point a little bit longer. Depends how this coast fight goes. Monk supporting Gushui. I believe there's about 3 people from Fuel still trying to contest. Spark not going for the flip quite yet. The Ant Matrix, the server control is fantastic for the Spark as Fuel are caught between a rock and a hard place. And they're feeling it.
MCD's Ant Matrix perhaps a little bit ill-considered. Edison was nowhere near to try and take advantage of that. This seems like slight overkill on the Captive Son, but hey, if you got to kill Hanbin, you got to kill Hanbin. He commands a lot of respect, and actually they didn't manage to get him. Now all 5 members of the Dallas Fuel are back up and alive, and if Hangzhou Spark are caught out of position, a rampage could be huge. Remember that Gushui can interrupt that with a punch if he's quick on the draw.
Okay, trying to lock down Shy. Can he run fast enough? That's a huge first pick for the Fuel, and they're already pressuring the point. You know where this Ilari is. Monk is half health. Fuel aren't really worried. They can go for the cap first, so the more this fight extends, the better it is for them, but Spark won't give it up, not without a fight, and Monk finally drops after not being able to hide long enough, and Langsa was on the high ground, now getting hunted by a Lucio, so Langsa can't provide healing in this fight, and Spark are suffering because of it. Shy comes back late into this fight after getting first blooded, but Fuel have already gotten the objective back.
Yeah, when Dallas Fuel get onto the objective, their need for speed boost starts to diminish, and that means Bliss can go and look for these 1v1s and try and really mess with Lynx's ability to heal the rest of the team. Rampage grabs no one. Big dodge from Shy.
Yeah, those sneakers are pretty good, and a gap closer's not bad for Hanbin, but once he was stuck there without a team, he took so much pressure, and Fuel engaged in and were punished for it. Sparks re-engage after I thought Gushui was gonna get staggered there. Spark have this clutch factor that is insane.
Gushui's up to 15 final blows, almost deadlifting right now on the Doom Fist. We thought he might just be a Winston, but Gushui's hero pool certainly expanding. Now Hanbin's forced to react, can't play the Junker Queen against this any longer. They're simply too fast and too inscrutable. Instead, the Diva with her quicker maneuvering with the boosters is going to be what's called for here, but how are you going to deal with something like the Captive Sun? It should be an easy eat. If that forces out all your defense matrix, for us, your team going to be vulnerable.
Oh, they waited. Spark waited for Dallas Fuel to be really coming inside the point to pop that Ant Matrix. And there's that Captive Sun eaten by Hanbin. A great play. Bliss's sound barrier doesn't work out. No, there's only so much sustain that Fuel can have. And now the artillery for Edison to fire back. Countered by the immortality by Langsa. Spark pushing through in this final fight for Control Center at 90% plus. Fuel will have to depend on the Bliss rollout to contest, to proc that overtime soon.
Hanbin might have to be the one to touch here. 99% there is indeed going to be a touch coming through from Spark with Dragon Blade in the back pocket, but nothing to try and amplify. It's going to be all about the raw mechanics level, but he can't get it out!
The raw mechanics from the supports. I can't believe it. Spark gave up so much space and poked down Fuel as they went to recontest. One by one, the dominoes fall, and it's Spark that ignite in map 1.
Gushui has gone 30-5. 19 final blows out of 41. 12k damage as well. That's more than Hanbin, who was playing so much Junker Queen, who is a huge raw damage hero. Novelty, innovation, and inspiration from the Hangzhou Spark. I said these guys were worshipping the old gods, but they might become gods unto themselves in this meta, bringing out innovative looks like that.
Spark are very pleased with themselves. I'm sure these are coaches coming around, pats on the back. Spark give Dallas Fuel their first game loss in knockouts. Fighting tooth and nail when it's Fuel that have such a lead. Spark, you can't bury them. They will always climb out of any pit. But up next, we have Dallas Fuel's choice of map. Don't go anywhere. Hangzhou Spark are up 1 map at the start of our upper bracket final of Group A. And, oh, we've got a substitution to talk about.
Indeed we do. Pineapple has made it into the roster. Previously it was on this roster as well before being dropped and then being brought back. But the thing is, Pineapple's been subbed in, as you can see from a little cross there, on the support role. And why would you bring in an aimer to play support? I do wonder. If only there was a new hit scan support who might be excelling. It's a mystery.
Stealing strats, I see, huh? Yeah, excited for Pineapple. Obviously proving himself on Rhodes, and well, they dropped their whole Chinese roster, so he had to make it. At least he made it back onto the best Chinese roster, being the Hangzhou Spark. And Pineapple, who's been that substitute DPS, gets to show his aim off on support. And he has Monk by his side too, so double flex in the cards.
Yeah, Pineapple also, one of the questions that we're going to be seeing here as we go over into our hybrid map, which is of course the choice of the Dallas Fuel, is if they might be forced to swap out onto a less aimy support and a more cerebral one like, say, Brigitte or Lucio, and if that might be an issue. But it remains to be seen if Dallas Fuel can actually force an adaptation out of Hangzhou Spark, who appear to have spent the last week preparing for Dallas's certain brand of Junker Queen meta here. And it seems, from what we've witnessed thus far, that they're doing pretty well at it.
Well, Midtown is coming up, and I usually don't get to see Doomfists win as often, both in the league and in my ranked games. But it's that rock, paper, scissors match where definitely the Orisa would pound Doomfist, but Dallas Fuel have only really played one composition around this Junker Queen. It's the Hanbin being the king of that hero. Why would you change something that's, well, not really broken? But they'll see. We'll see if those adaptations will come true on Midtown, where it's not obviously as an enclosed of a map as a control as Lijiang Tower. So I'm not sure if the Doomfist is gonna live on.
A little bit less potential for some environmental cheese deaths as well. One of the things that Hangzhou Spark did really well over on Control Center, which actually made the Illari an excellent pick compared to what I thought, was that they were playing that Illari out on the Mega Pack side, so that if you TP'd onto the Illari, there was always going to be the danger that Gusho was going to punch in and knock you off the map, which made the Illari almost undivable except from like single players like Bliss. I think that contributed a lot to getting a huge amount of healing throughput for the Hangzhou Spark that allowed them to clutch out many of those fights, as well as get that additional poke in that the Illari brings to the table.
Expecting more Symmetra Bastion, especially because with Symmetra, there's so many different ways to operate that Symmetra. There's like pinch plays you can go for where you have kind of half your team TP on one side of the other. You can just TP just right to the objective and punish a team that's defending too close. So many different options. Or you can just TP right into their face if you want to challenge a high ground position. And Fuel will be actually the colors. They are attacking.
They are attacking
there we
first.
Go. I was like, is that blue? Or pink?
Me on my way to learn the color blue.
Am I colorblind? Did I just discover that? Okay. Well, they're attacking. So now, I wonder if they're going to TP just past the Spark here.
Ah, the Gushway Orisa. No longer relying on the Doomfist. And we've been hyping up the Orisa. This is there are a lot of things that you have to worry about on this Hangzhou Spark. On plenty of emplacements, both a healing pylon that's going to be incredibly difficult to hit in advance, and of course a Torbjorn TP, Torbjorn turret as well, which is doing damage to the TP, but no blood spilt just yet.
Gushway's like, get into that room and stay there. You're in timeout.
You're grounded.
And Fuel, well, like I said, they TP'd onto the other side of the Spark, but with Torbjorn there and with Gushway bullying them around, Fuel lost Edison on their way there. It's a lot of damage now gone. Hanbin pulling in that Torbjorn of Leave, and Fuel are looking at all types of different targets. Maybe this giant battle horse running towards their supports would be a problem. And Fuel definitely can't take this fight.
Now, yo, with this new meta, I haven't been able to see the Hangzhou Spark Orisa skin before. Yeah, this thing kind of bangs. Big fan of that, and Leaf actually had his turret survive the entire time. Like, one of the biggest assets that, no way, this Hangzhou Spark team has is that Leaf can play basically any hero. That's why he's such a menace on the Echo. And the Torbjorn at the moment has kind of been buffed to the degree that he's a real menace in Overwatch League play,
Yeah.
because slowly his power has been taken from the auto-aiming turret over to rewarding aiming players using the rivet gun. And hey, if you want an aimer, leaves one of them.
Leaf scares me. He doesn't blink, he just grins as he just is throwing lobs right at the Dallas Fuel, who just TP right in their face. Terra Surge from Gushue. What a triple captive sub by Pineapple, as Fuel were so low and so grouped up. What a counterplay.
Oh my goodness, the Reddit combo. The captive sun and the Terra Surge comes in clutch. Everyone gets afflicted and then everyone gets sunstruck. They blow up each other. And Dallas Fuel yet to make any real changes here. Still hoping that these TP plays can work out as they come up towards ultimates. But with Hangzhou Spark having used 3 ultimates previously, there might be a little bit of economic peril.
Monk testing out his hops. Brought down to half health. Immortality used. Pineapple actually found by that artillery. How does that happen? How are you not able to jump out of it? Soundbearer too as Fuel engage and run them over like pancakes, and Fuel will cap the point.
There might be time for a recontest here. Shy, if not, will need to reset. Right now being hunted by Hanbin, beautiful knife, and yeah, Shy knows that it's curtains for this one. So that is going to be the full cap here for Dallas Fuel due to Shy being discovered. Neither Leave nor Shy decided to use their ults in that after Pineapple got taken out early by the artillery, potentially moving in too quickly with that outburst. Now Gushue swaps over from the Orisa onto the Doomfist once again, hoping to just disrupt the plans of the Dallas Fuel with the constant displacement of the charged up punches.
This is a lot more of an enclosed area, more friendly to the Doomfist. He can also get back to the high ground. How is he going to fare? Oh, he's out of line of sight. Good luck, Gushue. Oh, he's back. Okay. Fuel. I think they can just get a good knife onto Gushue and really just react and counter-engage once Gushue jumps in. Looks like Fuel do want to take control of that high ground, but once they leave their backline unattended, Gushue pounds them in. So Fuel gotta be careful of Gushue.
Edison had no idea what was coming, and one of the real issues is that if you lose Edison first, and the rest of your team have TP'd somewhere, then Edison ends up very much abandoned by himself and can't really rejoin the team without using a teleporter rotation to actually go and collect Edison first, which could be a major tax on the time bank of a team like Dallas Fuel. We do have a Rampage to play with here, but look at the interspersed positions of Hangzhou Spark. They are going to be real hard to Rampage because of all different verticalities.
Gushue jump scared himself and he just punched like 5 people. Then oop. Fuel again. They seem very eager to rotate to that high ground where maybe just dealing with Gushue first would be ideal. Edison very low and Gushue's too greedy. No way he gets out of that. Good lamp throw by Monk, but in a 1v5, Gushue is not our pen. But Fuel, how do they hold on now that Spark are gonna leave this bridge up to the Fuel to climb up to? And this should be Fuel maybe taking a bit more space, but they're taking their time. Gushue is back in. Hanbin rampages through. The supports of Spark are just fried after that. They're still gonna use their ult. Shy with the visor. Pineapple captive Sun. Fuel all stunned up by this damn Doomfist, who meteor strikes back into the line of fire. And Fuel do not survive.
Fuel do not survive, but neither does the Hangzhou Spark ult bank. All 5 ultimates were used there. A panic button hit once Gushue was lost and they had to make their way into a much more perilous fight where Hum could actually get some value from the Rampage. But Dallas Fuel, similarly, they've expended their entire bank here, and now that they're stuck in the weeds and they once again have to dislodge these poking supports from high grounds, it's not looking good for Dallas Fuel.
Gushue is very careful with his engages too. He only fed like once, and that's just way less than anyone I've ever met.
One feed, he's intermittent fast.
It's just oh, he jumps back in though, a mega stun onto the Fuel. And using that Bastion shift to try and force Gushue back. Even if a Doomfist blocks, if you think he's killable, it's worth going for, even if it charges him up. Well, if he's dead, he can't use it. Spark out taking angles around the Fuel, and well, Dallas Fuel teleport into the Spark, who are disengaging away. Fuel, it's just a game of cat and mouse, and Fuel have hunted them down one by one, and Spark can't escape.
Exactly, just said it's a game of cat and mouse. That was all about shepherding Hangzhou Spark into these limited positions where one teleport could get them on top of both of the supports, and Pineapple ended up falling a bit too early. Dallas Fuel now, they have the amplification matrix, which is going to be very good in a fixed area, which is going to allow Edison to do so much damage. Pineapple's dead again.
Edison said, get off me, bro. 86 HP. And Edison is dead, man. How does Edison live with this Doomfist constantly on his back? And Fuel don't have any time left. He'll be up to the Ant Matrix just to scare Spark away. Hanbin and MCD, I think, are the only ones alive to keep this overtime wick burning. And Spark have to be careful because there's still a lot of damage coming out of the Fuel. And now respawns are back. The artillery is striking Spark, but no deaths yet. As the visor from Shy through the Ant Matrix will be the ultimate to rule them all. Fuel have 2 people still alive. They're just too stubborn to fall. And finally, Fuel drop short of point B.
Rampage interrupted from Hanbin as well. A punch from Gushue quickly turns the Reckoning into a deadening. Oh, I do think that MCD should have used that Ant Matrix earlier. They had it set up for a final fight. They could have put Edison in an absolutely inassailable position on that newsstand, doing double damage onto all the people who were arrayed before him. MCD decides not to use it, instead using it later on to heal up Hanbin in what was a 2 versus 5. I think somewhat ill-conceived. Here's a quick look at that beautiful Reddit combo. Oh, crazy.
Spark have been really good usually at countering the Dallas Fuel TPs. That's why they brought Dallas Fuel to only like 90 seconds left in their time bank to cap the point. But then Spark kind of just were relying on Gushue to corral Fuel in certain places, and then Spark were the rest of Spark were just running away from the Fuel, and then Fuel just TP'd into the rest of Gushue's team, which got Fuel about close to point B, but that underpass is really difficult to play into with a Bastion.
Tell you what, more Gushue fanboying incoming. Gushue is currently averaging about 1 minute and 18 seconds per ult, which is incredibly fast. He's doing so much damage on the Doomfist due to Dallas Fuel, all playing so close together and putting out such a huge amount of damage. At the second that Gushue presses E, he essentially gets the empowered punch and can do a stun on everyone all over again. Also, now we're swapping over onto the Orisa. So my previous point, it's only fanboying, it doesn't have any analytical value. Thank you, Hangzhou Spark, very cool.
It's interesting to use the Orisa without a Lucio, without a Symmetra TP, so relying on that poke from Leave and Shy to open up these fights, but you know, there's some laundry you gotta do. You gotta walk in, deal with the Symmetra turrets. There's no Torbjorn turrets, thank goodness. So Spark have to be careful and kind of deciding it is tough to engage with an Orisa. She does have a lot of armor to sustain, but Gushue will be quicker to get to this high ground. He goes in, punches Fuel, gets a quick little stun. Spark walk in, deal with the Symmetra turrets. Laundry is done. Time to clean up the Fuel, but Edison unleashing here on this shift of the Bastion, pushing back the Fuel supports. A double anti hits Sparkle and Edison, forcing Fuel to take a second to regenerate.
Yeah, Han being on this off angle as well means that he doesn't have to expend the shout to actually get onto the squishy members of Hangzhou Spark. What's this? Monk's creeping along looking for a cheeky anti.
Okay, at least Gushue has his friends, and Pineapple can always TP to him. Misses the punch onto Hanbin, who just advances onto the rest of Spark support. Gushue left Pineapple and Monk out to dry because of that missed punch. And that is what costed them the fight. Okay, Meteor Strike. There also is a back cap from Pineapple and Shy. Pineapple managed to TP to Shy, I guess, instead of dying to Hanbin. So, free first tick, maybe free second tick. How does Fuel respond?
Yeah, Hanbin, how do you get there now? You've got to rely on a speed boost of Bliss and potentially a teleporter. Here it comes, straight onto a point. But guess what? Hangzhou Spark, they split up. They're no longer here. A hoodwinking, potentially, as Hanbin's looking for victims.
Edison, or Fuel, used Soundbeard to engage, and Spark were just like nowhere to be found. He still ended up being valuable. You got 3 kills out of it and some ult charge, and Fuel are using their ult economy really well.
Yeah, Fuel are definitely being incredibly efficient with how they are getting value out of these ults. Once again, it's the amplification matrix that's going to be a real pain to deal with Edison behind it. It can really force position out of Hangzhou Spark, but Hangzhou are taking incredibly disparate fights in a multitude of different positions, but it does mean that you sometimes sacrifice a member to a 1v1.
I've been worried about Shy's positioning on the Soldier. Just what kind of risks was he gonna take with a Symmetra TP, with the Lucio, with the Junker Queen? There's a lot of gap close, and Fuel are playing disperse enough where they're watching every off angle. They're watching every flank potential that Spark may have. So Shy might decide to just stay with the team and leave. Just jumps into the other team with the Dragon Blade. 2 and deflects. Immortality gone for now too, and Fuel even invested the Photon Beer to try and maybe cut off the healing for Leave, but the damage was already done. The bodies have been collected, and the point as well.
Classic combo right there. And the thing is, there are two wombo combos on Hangzhou Spark. The Nano Blade and the Kitsune Visor that we've seen be absolutely brutal before. Upping the fire rate of that Soldier 76 when he doesn't need to aim can prove deadly for anyone. And it could be a great way to actually react to a teleport coming in when you see the Dallas Fuel are committed. Sparkle's already down.
Yeah, Symmetra is very prone. I mean, just Symmetra and Bastion are glass cannons. Meteor Strike right in. When you see Edison, why are they still committed in this room in a 4v5? Especially Edison popping shift form when you just don't know what's around the corner. Dallas Fuel are fumbling the bag, and they're giving up so much real estate. If Spark get control of this top bridge and keep advancing, they will take the map.
Now the time to get value out of this rampage. Multiple members of Hangzhou Spark disengaging together. They're scared of the artillery. Goes down into the back, but doesn't really strike Payda. This does give a big angle for the window, though. Hangzhou Spark are already disengaged, however. The fight's done.
It's 2 ults for bridge control is not efficient when you think about it. Well, you got 0 kills out of it, but that power position is so key. And Spark try to take it right back. Gushue jumps in, Kitsune rush, Fuel try to run, but can they hide? Sparkle is down, and so is Edison. Just can't be sped out fast enough. And Bliss doesn't use Soundbeer to salvage that 4v5 fight. And Fuel are just choking. That rampage cancel is gonna hurt in the morning. And Spark are also right around the corner of this box of victory. And Bliss gets staggered too. He can't even pop barrier. There is no chance. Spark go to match point.
On a map pick of Dallas Fuel where they thought they'd have an advantage with their patented comp, it's all smiles and laughs for Hangzhou Spark. They think they can stop us. They think they can play meta cheese. Did you see this? Save a Spark. It's all laughs. And honestly, not many laughs for the Dallas Fuel, looking a little bit dismayed, a little bit distraught. And certainly not feeling overly confident right now. They thought they may have been going up against a bunch of Gushue Winston, but Spark have been in the lab, Lemon.
Yeah, the Ooga Booga comp. Just this Doomfist that is constantly able to jump in so quick, displace you, and there's just not been the punishing power. How can you? He escapes so fast and just isn't feeding. That's the key thing. Don't feed and you win. Isn't that nuts, Overwatch players? And well, Dallas Fuel wish they took a lesson out of that book with how that last fight broke down and how they react under pressure. Spark feeling pretty calm right now, up 2-0 in the series. After this break, it'll be Fuel's final choice of map. It's match point for the Hangzhou Spark as this has to be the banger match of the day, and it delivers, at least on the side of the Spark. Midtown was the map they just won over when it was Dallas Fuel's choice.
Yeah, for Dallas Fuel fans, though, Lemon, this is feeling less like a banger and more like a need for a collective hug and a blankie. Pineapple subbed out once again for Langsir, of course, with a larger variety of support heroes, especially the main supports that can be played here, makes sense. But Pineapple did pop off on both the Alari and the Kiriko, two new support heroes that highly reward aim. And seems like Pineapple was able to do quite a bit of that. Pineapple actually had one of the highest damages in the lobby during the first half of that Midtown, was doing some of the most final blows as well. Admittedly, it was a little bit buffed up by that combo of Terror Surge and Captive Sun, but hey, the efficacy is there, and Dallas Fuel could not deal with it.
Oh boy, yeah, Fuel just didn't know how to punish the Doomfist. They started cooking by just, let's ignore the Doomfist, and quickly, once Guxue has that window where he is leaving and out of cooldowns for that small 5 to 6 seconds, then Fuel engage onto everyone else. But the rest of Guxue's team isn't stupid. They're just not gonna fight with Fuel unless Guxue is there holding their hand. And Fuel, you could tell that the panic, the pressure was too much for them. Not popping ults when they needed to, popping ults when they shouldn't have. It was a mess, and they had time to collect themselves, though. We're going to Flashpoint next.
Yeah, the sad stat, maybe subjective, is that thus far, for being one of the best Junker Queens in the world, Hanbin's yet to have a good rampage. Or I think maybe across like 4 or 5 rampages, Hanbin might have antied like 2 people. It's been disastrous, honestly, for the Junker Queen. It's been played around so well by the Hangzhou Spark. Suravasa, like you said, is where we're going for Flashpoint. Yet again, this is a Dallas Fuel pick. But do Hangzhou Spark have any need to really change what they're doing thus far? They've had a couple of looks at the Orisa, mostly playing it on the defense, and like we saw that flash of a pan on a tank, but figuring out it wasn't amazing for engagements without the aid of either a speed boost or a teleporter. I feel like here, speed is your ally, and Doomfist is bloody speedy. Intractable at the moment, cannot be stopped. Dallas Fuel certainly are having issues with it.
And Doomfist is very strong on control type maps like Flashpoint. A lot of Suravasa have enclosed walls. I'm pretty surprised Fuel would want to go to this. I would say Junk City is less friendly to Doomfist, but Suravasa has been the most favored Flashpoint map. Fuel, I would say, would look good if they did offer the Junker Queen. Would give them another option of rotational speed, right, with the Queen shout.
We've got ourselves a Orisa Lemon. A change from the Dallas Fuel. Rush has been in. Rush has been able to talk out what's happening right now and may feel that the additional CC the Orisa can give over is worthwhile in trying to shut down this Doomfist.
And Guxue respecting the space. You do not want to tangle with that Orisa. Finally, the counter to Doomfist comes out, but the Fortify. Hanbin can time this well and just simply not get punched and lock himself in maybe a small room with the Doomfist. And what a TP from Sparkle, but they all evaporate. I think Monk might have left an anti on the ground, and Fuel just got shredded.
Yeah, the anti-nade landmine was stepped upon by that teleporter. Dallas, but no! Oh, they're back to the Junker Queen. It's Jova. Okay, MCD onto the Kiriko. Interesting. This is going to be a lot harder for Guxue to shut down due to the constant wall climbing. Does mean that you can try and play some more vertical places where you're less likely to be punched. And the Immortality Field doesn't do amazingly against the Doomfist because you can be punched out of its LOS by the Doomfist. So perhaps this is the change was needed for Dallas.
Maybe this Junker Queen is just to enable Sparkle and Edison, because Junker Queen would suffer there. Edison, though, getting now bopped by Lucio. Both backlines in a lot of trouble. Spark, though, benefiting from the point, reaching up to 61%, but without heals. You're not expecting them to keep it that long. But Guxue's kind of a one-man army, where he's now killed 2 this fight. He's up against MCD, and Kiriko just put out a good amount of damage, so Guxue being careful, managing to hold on to that meteor strike, and Fuel are trying to flip.
No, Lever's going to get the last second contest though, tagged out by Guxue, can get himself an easy charge of the punch here off the Disruptor shot. Nice bit of tech, but missing the punch is not ideal. Now too low on HP and needs to rescue himself.
He's ready to recontest. Now jumping down and almost Messes up Bliss's sound barrier, and Spark just don't have the sustain against that. It's just simply a barrier diff. But you'll have to now make a 0 to 100 comeback. You're even happier now that Leave wasted that blade.
Yeah, that blade not being able to be combined with a nano either does mean that its efficacy is entirely limited. Guxue swaps now, having realized that he's been flummoxed on the Doomfist by the Kiriko over to the Winston. And in isolation, the Junker Queen does incredibly well against the Winston, but when you're worrying about other factors, like say a nano visor that could come out from Shy, this may force inopportune positions from Hanbin that could be punished by a cerebral Winston like Guxue.
MCD ready for the Kitsune rush, is going to initiate the fight with it, but against the nano visor, the old and true works out. Spark, especially just being careful with how they use this visor. Almost another Ajax there. Langsa pops it though. Spark has the sustain to pull through in this fight, but what does the damage look like? Leave wasn't really aggressive with it, but with Bliss being the only one contesting there for Fuel, it was easy pickings. As Spark cleaned up the fight at the 99% mark, it's been a bloodbath for this first point of Surabasa.
Yeah, critical micro detail that happened in that fight as well. Edison actually killed himself with his overclock. It was reflected by Leave. Excellent timing in mind games coming out from the Leave Genji, and this is kind of a Genji battle made in heaven, Lemon. Leave versus Sparkle, both a legendary on this character. Next flashpoint is going to be the Temple, and it's a preferable spawn for Spark, who are much closer to this, can set up defensively, which is great for Guxue, meaning you won't have to use your leap to engage into the Junker Queen, who obviously is going to be able to punish that if you don't have the leap cooldown.
Oh, say goodbye to this Winston, though. There's a Reaper, and as long as Edison camps out the point, Spark, you wish they stayed on the Doomfist, because this would be favored for that. Spark, you can see how they struggle to take that space. Fuel are going to go for the cap first, and maybe Hanbin can extend outwards to not let Spark contest. They jump in. That Winston bubble is evaporated. Bursted both physically and morally. Spark are just hoping this nano builds up in time, but Hanbin doesn't let you have time to think. He rampages in, hits two with it. Guxue in so much trouble as the rest of Fuel rampage in alongside Hanbin. That sound barrier is a little bit late. It is a 3v3 though, with Fuel having a bit more sustain. Monk allowed to use the nano for Shy, who unleashes the tactical visor to clean up the fight once and for all for the Spark.
And though he was one of the first ones on his team to die, that all came down to Guxue baiting in Hanbin after that rampage and putting down a bubble behind him to block off the healing. That meant Hanbin was taken out too late, and Bliss couldn't use the sound barrier because it would have been blocked by the Winston bubble, meaning there was no way to save that Junker Queen. And after that, it's easy to be torn apart without a tank when you're faced with a nano visor. Anyone in the sights of Shy was torn apart.
Ginny Rush available. MCD drops out immediately, jumps back to Suzu gone. Spark using the primal, especially Guxue, to sustain through this fight and toss Hanbin in these corners, especially away from his team, but he is corralled. And Fuel gather around him using the shout and Sparkle with the blade, but it's Leaves that's just bigger and better. Fuel fall to the ground and Spark keep the point.
No nano required, and heading into this final fight, it's going to be a battle of wills between Langsa and Edison. It should be an easy response here for Langsa. Not much can really interrupt this sound barrier. Just needs to stay shy of Edison's Death Blossom and then react to it when it comes in. The Hangzhou Spark, this should be a fairly easy fight.
Oh, just Wraithen and Death Blossom. Ah, come on, Edison. Do it for the content. Someone has to touch! Hello? Okay, someone did. Thank God. Now to almost C9. Now the Death Blossom almost slipped through. The Suzu was a good attempt by MCD, but the bubble just better from Guxue to lock down that damage. And Fuel just don't stand a chance. Spark are going to map point.
That point indeed. I love the overall plan there from Dalatior to Suzu the Death Blossom, so that any potential sleep coming through from Monk would have simply passed straight through the Reaper. MCD's gone over to the Moira now. Dalatior is scrambling. They're panicked. This is so unlike such a well-coached team, but Hangzhou Spark are in their heads with true ferocity. And how is Guxue staying alive against both a Reaper and a Junker Queen? It's something that only a magician of this kind of hero can do, playing around his cooldowns incredibly well and also making sure that Hanbin gets no chances to knife him in and force him to his mortality.
Gotta keep that fade too. If Shy pops the visor, that will be your get out of jail free card. Sound here engaged though from the Fuel, and they're all anti from Monk, and doesn't matter. Monk throws the nano to Shy as Fuel escape into the shadows, into the corridor. Shy turns and burns. A Sparkle went for the assassination to save his team, but doesn't work. Edison steps up to be the hero for the Fuel. They absolutely need to defend this point and cap it too. And Fuel are successful. How do they climb back into Suravasa though? It's map point, and match point for the Spark.
Last time Leave had an unassisted Dragon Blade. He had 3 kills. And Dallas Fuel had very little to respond to this. Only really can use the Rampage here to try and strike first. And playing proactively here is very much in the interest of Dallas Fuel. What a knife!
What a knife, Gracie. Good job.
Grab him, Gracie!
Get him, Gracie. Spark said, we're not gonna get caught, I guess. Fuel have so many ults too. You have Spark into a corner. Hanbin, well, got the knife into a Winston. Good position there from Gushue. Won't be dragged in. Fuel deciding how eager they want to be. But Shy is back. Hanbin wants to rampage. He is slept. Sparkle, though, gets all the attention, and this blade is cut down. The rampage of Spark hits him good, and there's no supports helping the Spark now. Fuel wipe them clean. Is there anyone to touch for the Spark? Fuel looks like they'll stay alive.
Finally, value from a blade and from a rampage. And the coalescence here. Remember, there's no real stun available for the Hangzhou Spark. We simply have to weather the storm using a sound barrier. They might even decide not to play this one. Just realizing they're too far away to touch it. Those points tick up mighty quick. Looks like we should be heading to Ruins or Palace. Palace is going to be where we're going next, and of course, this is a preferable spawn for Dallas Fuel. They're already closer to this, so Hangzhou Spark, they might try to make a skirmish early in this before Dallas Fuel can set up on the point in defensive position. Hubbin's dead? What?
Didn't even have time. Spark just caught up to them. Now the Primal to sustain through this. You got Sparkle in the corner, manages to squeak out. MCD trying to support as much as they can. Death Blossom gets you Shy around the corner. And Fuel trading blow for blow, and Gushue jumps out, giving Fuel a chance to anchor this while Hanbin is missing. Edison is going to be such a threat in close quarters as Lee will just try to dance around him. Maybe leave the doorway to be open for Gushue to jump in. He needs the nano, but the damage mitigation can only do so much against the entire team of Dallas Fuel, who now, actually it's Sparks Sound Beer that comes out first. Bliss second. Fuel have the edge when it comes to sustain, and you can tell Spark are running.
Yeah, ill comms as well from Spark. They actually used that sound barrier as Gushue was disengaging. The shakedown should be solid here, unless anyone just randomly runs into the bomb. Hanbin just has so many players in his sights. If Gushue gets himself staggered, that would be brutal, and, well, that's going to be very bad news for Hangzhou Spark. Now they might only get one fight before this point goes over the way of Dallas Fuel, and they're going to have to contend with both a Rampage and a Dragon Blade again.
Fuel gotta make the reverse sweep happen when it comes to not only the SMAP, but the whole series. One baby broom, or maybe a larger one if they can do it. Fuel have clutched up before. Now you got the Rampage, the Blade, so many options. They're giving up almost the entire point with at least one person contesting, and you gotta worry because this Doomfist is in, and probably why Fuel don't want to play that close to it. It's the tactical visor for Spark to take back the point as Fuel tries to touch and recontest as much as they can. It's 93+%. Can Fuel do it? Can force the final point? It's Sparkle versus Leave. Who is bigger and better? Fuel only have supports remaining against the big bad boss of Gushue. It's over for the Fuel to contest this at the end, but it's Spark. They have to go 0 to 100 to this point.
Bro, Bliss is a menace. Surely not the 1 versus 2. Gushue's going to finally get a repair pack from Lengsa, so this one is over. But MCD has now lost Hanbin twice while Coalescence is available. We need to see more willingness to use these ults.
Fuel are still contesting, and Spark almost C9. Gushue stepped off! Fuel with the point!
Oh, no.
Gushue was the only one left, but he had to, because I think he had to. I can't remember his help.
I don't know. It's a mistake either way. And one that Hangzhou Spark are going to have to amend for on the final point. It's going to be Ruins. It's going to be close quarters. Bliss has grabbed himself 2 kills on the way here, so this should pretty much guarantee Dallas Fuel getting the first cap, as Edison's almost there already. Remember, when it gets into these tight quarters, that's where the Rampage can get real value. Hangzhou Spark, they're starting to move over to their initial comp that was brought out on Lijiang Tower, what feels like an eon ago, Lemon. Bringing out the Echo here, which does so much damage. Look at this. Stealth for the Dallas Fuel, looking to try and get an early skirmish here rather than fight on the point, potentially. Just want to try and get a surprise factor on Hangzhou Spark.
Ooh, the pins are all lining up for Hanbin to pull them down. But you have to choose which road you want to cross, and it's after the supports. And with, the Rampage, yeah, let's throw it down. Monk gave the Nano, I believe, the Shy, but with the anti-Shy doesn't live much longer. What initiative from the Fuel. It did cost him some bodies, but it's only Link, so that's really left, and he's gonna rally. He believes in Gushui, and so do we. Fuel did manage to cap to get 35%, but Spark robbed them.
Oh, Dallas Fuel, they simply went into that close quarters combat, and they were unprepared for the amount of damage that Brigitte does to that many people close together. No means of blocking the damage coming in. Lynx were just able to slay them all with maces to the face for everybody. He's playing a little bit close here, but does have the flight to try and escape if need be, and there's no real way for Dallas Fuel to punish Leave too easily if he's got that flight available.
Shy has the visor. MCD has to keep the fade once again. Here's the blade first from Sparkle. Just being careful. Spots Monk. Gets him low enough. And you were able to stop Shy before you killed the supports. What a boop from Bliss. Either way, Dallas Fuel in a lot of trouble. Edison anti too. He doesn't even get the assassination onto Monk. An incredible feel from both sides when it comes to these healers. And it pays dividends to keep these tanks up. It's Hanbin versus Gushui. 75+% for the Spark. They could win the map here. And let's leave assuring of that. Maybe one last touch by the Fuel. MCD is staggered. This is painful.
MCD is not going to be involved in this last fight. Neither is Hanbin. It's going to come down to Bliss and Sparkle to make it happen. But Dallas Fuel, they've got no real tools to work with. They can't touch in time. It's a 3-0 for the Hangzhou Spark. And Dallas Fuel came in potentially as favorites here when we weighed up the Junker Queen versus the Winston. But no one expected Gushui to be a god. An absolute pantheon-topping monster on the Doomfist.
Doomfist is back on the menu, boys. Gushui makes the case for it. Holy cow. Get him on your roll star. You know, you guys have time. Gushui's on the roll star. You can put him in, and he makes the case for it. The Doomfist Gap. What a guy. But Fuel fought pretty hard, made a lot of adjustments. The Reaper, the Moira, the Queen, everything. Even some Orisa, where I thought that was going to be the kryptonite to Doomfist. They didn't seem to believe so. Almost the reverse sweep. But the initiative, that the Rampage and all the chaos that happened, it was about who was going to trade supports faster, and this time it was the Spark. The 3-0 against the #1 seed from qualifiers. What a win for Spark.
Hangzhou Spark managed to get the only win over Dallas Fuel in qualifiers as well. It feels like Hangzhou might be this team's kryptonite, but who else could it be for player of the match? Honestly, it was barely even a question. Everybody knew what was coming. Gushui is your player of the match. The Doomfist King, the man who bucks the trends of the meta and says, you know what? If you're going to play with cheese, I'm going to bring the knife.
Oh. I wasn't sure about this one because it seems so simple in my brain, but I'm not these guys. Okay, if you can javelin the Doomfist, if you can just put pressure onto the Doomfist, it's very vulnerable without cooldowns, but Gushui was so good at getting in and out and bullying everyone. He's so fast when he engages too, and that's what made Dallas Fuel panic not only on Lijiang Tower, but also on Midtown. That's why you have Hanbin using Rampage and dead fights, Bliss who doesn't know when to pop Sound Barrier. Gushui does not give you time to think.
Yeah, the sound barrier in particular is a real issue against the Doomfist because it can be so easily interrupted by the punch, so you are consistently worrying about that potential Ajax factor, and it does weigh heavy on Alucio's mind. But today, Gushui just saw exactly what would mess with all of these meta-cheesy heroes like the Bastion, like the Sim, the Junker Queen in particular. The Junker Queen getting her carnages consistently interrupted as well by the punches was a real issue for Hanbin, but limited not only his overall damage, but also the self-healing that was generated by a carnage usually. And that means that a lot more attention has to come from MCD and Bliss to keep him alive.
And then you go to Suravasa, where it's just such an enclosed map, and you saw how important rotations are. Even Dallas Fuel, when you thought they had better spawns, they start getting killed on their way there. There was some really good ideas out of the fuel, but once you have just this collision, this traffic jam of 10 people punching each other out, it's focus, it's composure, it's whose supports are still alive with a queen or a doomfist in your face. And Spark once again just proving that they are the solution to the Dallas Fuel problem.
Yeah, special shout out on Suravasa to Bliss as well. Actually had more final blows than either of his DPS, ending up at 11 on the Lucio. The Little Frog certainly was the warrior who tried, but Spark as a whole were just able to do so much against that tightly packed composition. We saw MCD play 3 separate different supports, trying the BAP, trying the Kiri, trying the Moira. None of them worked, and honestly, I think that, like you said, sometimes the support ult timing for Dallas Fuel was a bit of an issue, but that's because Gushue creates that paranoia to stop your ults from getting cancelled.
I'm excited to hear Gushue's thoughts, the Doomfist mastermind. We're waiting for him to join for an interview shortly, and we'll have our translator Evelyn help out with that. If you're looking forward to more matches, we got 3 more on the schedule today, with the Dreamers and Pokerface facing off in our lower bracket semifinal coming up next. Loser stays home out of the tournament. Winner top 3 and goes up against the Dallas Fuel in the lower bracket final, which is going to be a tough one for sure. Group B has Seoul Infernal versus O2 Blast as our 3rd match, and then Seoul Dynasty versus SPG, the little team that could, who beat Shanghai Dragons multiple times. I'm excited.
Yeah, SPG are turning into a little bit of an Owl Slayer team at the moment, so there's potential that that's going to be maybe a slightly more contentious match than many people expect. Dreamers versus Pokerface is going to be very important. Dreamers still have a chance of making it all the way to Toronto, but to do that, they have to defeat Pokerface. And honestly, Liga is a fantastic Doomfist, so maybe if they can make it to go up against Dallas Fuel, they can follow the blueprint they've seen here.
Looks like Gushue is ready for our interview. So let's tune in and hear from Evelyn to kind of help us talk to them. Hello, Gushue. Congratulations on your win. Can you hear us okay?
Hello.
Gushue.
Hello.
Awesome. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. A victory over the Fuel. Congrats. Do you consider them your rival? Do you think they'll return to the grand final?
Hello， 那么首先恭喜获胜，今天也是一场非常漂亮的3-0。第一个问题是，这个赛季和燃料队有挺多交手的，你有没有觉得燃料队和杭州队有那么一点宿敌的感觉？同时，你觉得他们会再度到总决赛和你们重新会面吗？
我觉得这赛季一直以来，燃料队都用他们的最强的女王体系来打我们最强的温森体系。我还是说一句话，有女王打我们很难赢。
那么你觉得他们会进入到下周的决赛吗？能够重新再度对话吗？和杭州队？
我觉得他们大概率能进季后赛，下周的决赛。
So during this season, Dallas Fuel is always been using their Jungle Queen comp against our Winston comp, and my answer is always the same. Jungle Queen is really hard to beat Winston. And for the grand finals next week, I think it's really possible that they can make it to the grand finals again, and I'm really looking forward to fight against them again. Yeah.
Oh, really interesting that the Winston is somewhat weak against the Jungle Queen comp, because today it was a lot of Doomfist. Can you tell us about the Doomfist choice? How does he fare in the current meta? What situations is he best in?
那么虽然之前提到了我们一直是在玩温顿体系，但是今天也看到过去选手玩了很多的铁拳，想问一下，你觉得铁拳在这个版本它的出场原因，然后它的一些就是强度和长处都是什么呢？
我也不知道，我只是某一天训练赛突然选了个铁拳出来，感觉玩起来挺爽的，就一直用下去了。我也不知道它的强处在哪里，反正用起来就感觉很爽。
To be very honest, I have no idea like why Doomfist is really fit in this meta. I just randomly picked Doomfist in our scrims one day, and I thought it works really well, and I had a lot of fun playing it. So yeah, that's why I play a lot of Doomfist today.
I'm glad you're having so much fun, and apparently it wasn't calculated. It looked calculated to us. Tell us more about the Winston, because you're one of the few teams that actually still play Winston. Why is Winston still strong in your eyes?
那么我们还是回到温斯顿，想问一下，这一整个赛季来说，温斯顿都打非常多，就是顾学选手认为温斯顿他最强势的点在于什么？
我觉得温斯顿最强的在于他的造纸和机动性吧。温斯顿的造纸能做很多事情，包括隔断对面奶位啊，把人隔掉杀掉，而且机动性高，可以一直拉扯对面。我觉得这是温斯顿一直比较强的点，而且包括大招爆发伤害也很高。
I think the best part about Winston is his bubble and his high mobility. His bubble enables you like to split someone from his teammates, so you can easily kill him. And also his high mobility makes you make it really feasible to create space for your teammates, so they can do more things. Also, the ultimate of Winston has really high like burst damage, so you can get kills and sometimes turn the fight around.
Well, we saw plenty of fights turned around by you today, and one of the interesting things we saw was Pineapple making his first appearance. And can you tell us about the role of Pineapple on the team now that he's been brought back onto the roster?
然后最后一个问题是，今天我们也看到 Pineapple 选手久违的回到了场上，然后玩的是辅助位的新英雄 Ilari， 想问一下，他现在在这个阵容里扮演的是什么样的角色呢？
目前来说 ，Pineapple 算是辅助里面的枪辅吧，而且伊拉瑞这个英雄挺吃瞄准的 ，Pineapple 他一上手当时就玩得很厉害，所以基本上我们队伍一直让他来玩这个新英雄来的。
So for now, Pineapple is kind of like the second best support on our team, and since the new hero Ilari is a hero that really requires your aim ability, and Pineapple is really good at that. So he's always been playing this hero on our team for now.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to seeing more of Pineapple, more of this Doomfist. Best of luck to you, Gushwei. Thank you for the interview, and good luck in the grand final. We'll see you there.
好的，感谢采访，也希望接下来的比赛一切顺利，能看到更多的 Pineapple 选手的Ilari 和顾学选手的温斯顿。感谢采访。
好，拜拜。
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Gushwei.
So that was Gushwei. Doomfist God, apparently, as the meta is evolving always.
The meta is continually evolving, and Hangzhou Spark have surprised us all. But there are still many surprises to come today. We've got match number 2 of 4 coming up right after a break, so do not go anywhere. The contenders' teams will clash after this.